I'm going to turn that down when that lets that out. Okay, I'm the only one that's being a rebel so far. I can't wait for Eric to get him because he will wear his mask. She said if we sit down, we didn't want to work.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this May 19th meeting of the Oakwood Unit 76 Board of Education. As a reminder, we are live streaming this and we will be recording this meeting. Roll call, please.
Bradford.
Here.
Janeski. Lynn.
Here.
Ludwig.
Here.
Plattner. Smith.
Here. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item number 3, we do have some old business to begin the meeting. First off, I have to acknowledge that we're very fortunate as a district. We had 7 applicants for our board member vacancy. We extended the opportunity for 4 to interview. Unfortunately, with some time constraints, we're only able to interview 3. But after some time on Monday night, we're able to come together and decide as a board who that next board member may be.
Very good. So at this time, I believe we have the opportunity to recognize that person and take the oath. Would that be correct, Mr. Smith?
That is correct.
Okay.
I'd like to welcome Ms. Ania Hicks.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Hicks, I believe I've placed your certificate of congratulations as well as your oath. And I have the privilege of taking your picture while you do that.
I, Ania Hicks, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education or Board of School Directors of Oakwood, number 76, in accordance with the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States of Illinois and the laws of the state of Illinois. I do my best. I will do my best, or the best of my ability. I further swear that I shall respect taxpayers' interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board, while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that the board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by majority vote at a public board meeting. I shall abide by majority decision of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. As part of the Board of Education, as Board of School Directors, as the case may be, I shall accept the responsibilities for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district. I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulative goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Oakwood number 76. I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organization framework. I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement in all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law. I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community's school to advance the vision for Oakwood number 76, and shall strive to work together with the district's superintendent to lead the school district towards fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the area of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Agenda item number 4, I'd like to recognize our guests this evening and see if we have any public comment.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to take a moment to welcome our guests who've traveled to see us tonight, the Diana Vargas and her team from Amoresco. So welcome and thank you for being here tonight. Before they give their presentation, I thought it would be helpful if I give a little bit of a backdrop on how we arrived to this presentation this evening, okay? So I'm just going to take a moment and just share a few highlights and a little bit of a timeline before they come and make their presentation. I had an opportunity as my first step to meet with the Oakwood Junior High School staff, both as far as group and individual meetings on March 5th and 8th. And that opportunity I chose to take was because I felt that I needed to listen to some of their challenges academically as a staff within their building for their students and how they were providing instruction, well, in person and or remotely. And I was also encouraged to listen to some of their challenges and barriers that they are experiencing. So that's kind of where this whole situation started as far as gathering information and needs for one of our buildings. The second step that came into play there was every year we do a needs assessment through our curriculum coordinator, Mrs. Kimbrough, and I know that she received information from the entire district, but the information that I received, that I collected, she also received similar in her needs assessment. So things were kind of aligning as far as what we felt the needs were for our 7th and 8th grade students at our junior high school. Some of those main points that we saw in the needs assessment had to do with technology and connectivity. Just the challenges there, we have reached our limit in terms of the technology connectivity that we can provide to that building, and that has been a barrier for us. There is just not much more that we can do, as we've talked before, in terms of trying to get a line drilled to there that will be a lot more expensive and more than we could really afford moving forward. So we knew that we have kind of maxed out on our opportunities there. I also heard, as well as Ms. Kimbrough, from some of her needs assessment, that staffing resources was something that was a concern. We are always looking, we know there's a teacher shortage throughout, but also the specialists get very hard to find at times. And we've been looking for 2 years, for example, for special ed teachers in our high school as well as our junior high school. So your specialists, those are people that can be shared not only at different grade levels, but sometimes throughout buildings. And they brought to my attention just some concerns that they have about staffing resources. They also mentioned my visit with the junior high, both as a group and each individual meeting that I had. I would like to mention that I had an opportunity to sit down with every single certified staff member at the junior high in one-on-one meetings after our group meeting to hear from them individually as well. And I provided an opportunity to sit down with the support staff, but only one of them chose to meet to kind of share their thoughts and frustrations at that time. They mentioned location and isolation. As we know, they're located out in Newtown, and they felt like that was a barrier for them. They needed more availability to access staff, to be able to collaborate, share resources, support, and the specialists, as I mentioned earlier. Following those 2 steps, the next thing that I did was I worked in collaboration with our curriculum coordinator and our technology coordinator. Those were the 2 areas that we felt like needed to be addressed, and we started talking about solutions. What are some solutions that we can provide for our students at the junior high building of 7th and 8th grade, and to support our staff to reduce their frustrations and give them the tools they need to equip our young people? So we began working on those solutions for students and staff. In that process, I also contacted the Illinois State Board of Education. We knew that we were getting another ESSER fund of about $2.5 million. So we've already received some ESSER funds from the federal government. This was another layer of money that was coming our way for ESSER 3, it's called, with that federal grant, and $2.5 million. And so I contacted the Illinois State Board of Education to try to find out what are some of the allowable opportunities that we could capture with this funds So that way it's not something that is more of a consumable that would be here and be gone, and there would be no lasting impact. So one of the ideas that I threw out there, I was just kind of reaching for the stars a little bit to try to figure out, what can we really do? And in conversations with the State Board of Education, I submitted a request to them, a proposal, and I heard back fairly quickly. And that request was, I wanted to know if the $2.5 million that we are going to be receiving could be used for any type of construction. And so we heard back, and once we heard back, I was able to get on the phone with the lady from the Illinois State Board of Education. I think Mrs. Kimbrough was in on that and got a chance to hear that as well. And we had a conversation, and not only did they approve that request, which was the first request that they had on such a matter, but they also encouraged it. So we had great support from the Illinois State Board of Education on how to utilize these funds for our school district if we chose to do that. So now, since we knew that that was allowable, the next step that we needed to do is to work with our partner Amoresco to find out what are some options, that we can provide for a Board of Education. And I had some conversations with our school board just to see if this is something that they would entertain in wanting to move forward to hear of some options with some possible construction. So what do I mean by construction? What I mean is, would there be a way to take these ESSER funds and to do a build out at our grade school and to bring in our 7th and 8th graders to the grade school? And if so, what would that look like? So that was basically how we started moving forward. Amoresco has spent many hours and has been great communicating with me on some of the opportunities moving forward. So I also had a chance to speak with the junior high and the grade school principals. I needed to know their perception on how this would impact them and how they see it impacting students. There were a lot of things that came out of those conversations, but again, much support moving forward from my conversations with our board. We do have some deadlines to meet because of the grant application. Is it July 1, Ms. Kimbrough? Okay, so June 30th. So things are moving a little bit fast in terms of getting an initial application, which can be amended later, but we need to get that application in to indicate our interest. So what I've done tonight is I've basically invited Amoresco to present options for a possible solution for an Oakwood grade school build out to add the 7th and 8th graders to the building using the $2.5 million federal funds. And I just wanted to, before I bring them forward, some of the things that we saw in these meetings we had as benefits to this. We were trying to look at what are benefits, what would be barriers. And the benefits that we saw were academic limitations for grades 7 and 8. They've been limited in their resources. This would help take care of that. The special education limitations that we currently have, we see that this would take care of that. Technology limitations, we see this as a solution to take care of that. Assessments, the way that the assessments in the state are broken down, again, this would fall right in line with how the assessments are laid out with the State Board of Education and the assessments we do. We know that the boiler at the junior high school is kind of on life support. Thanks to our custodial staff, they have been able to sustain that for us very well. But we do know that that is a cost factor that's coming anytime. So we see this as a situation to address that. Transportation reduction in cost would happen for us. We would lose some utility costs. We would gain some utility costs in the new building. We know that. But it would be newer lighting and those types of things that would help us. It aligns K2, 3.5, and 6.8. Okay, so that's how we could structure the building. And that aligns perfectly with assessments as well. Structurally, I think this will provide a safer learning environment for our students, control access points, playgrounds, and so forth. So those are some of the main points. I've got notes here that go beyond this, but those are just some of the key points that I wanted to share as far as what we are seeing as administrative staff as possible solutions. So tonight, I apologize for the long introduction, but I wanted to at least give our public, this is the first time our public has heard of this. So it's important that we kind of give the backstory, and as we make this public and start to move forward, because eventually, depending on how the board feels that we want to move forward, and if there's an option presented that they want us to pursue, we will need to get public input on this. That's one of the requirements with the ESSER funds. So we want to make sure that we're in compliant moving forward. We want to be doing things with integrity. We want to be transparent, and we want to entertain any questions, that our community may have. So again, thank you for coming. Diana Vargas, I've known for a while, and she is going to take the floor at this time. So thank you.
Get us started. Thank you very much, Larry, for that. I'm going to step back so I can lower my mask and try to project my voice that way, but let me know if you guys can't hear me on that side. So my name is Diana Vargas. I am a senior account executive for Ameresco. I pretty much work in the northern half of the state of Illinois, representing all of our K-12 districts, which is about 450 for my half of the state. Before joining Ameresco, I graduated from the University of Illinois in 2004. So it's great to be back down in the Illini region. After that, I started my career at Johnson Controls. You guys might have heard of the company. And then I worked for the Carrier company in HVAC. So my whole career has been working with facilities, buildings, systems, and contracting. So before we get started, I do want to introduce my awesome team, Brian and Rob. If you guys want to just get up and name and title, keep it basic.
I'm Brian Roskins. I'm team lead for our project development group. So we put together a lot of the projects before they get to construction and then make sure that they get installed and designed. So my background is architecture. History is a project manager for mechanical and construction.
All right. Name is Robert Delaney. I'm team lead for K-12 in Illinois. So I handle a lot of the design build processes that we have within the state. I pretty well handle a lot of the projects from south of Chicago. So around the neighborhood quite a bit. So what I normally bring to the table is I have a general contracting background. So I have a lot of the boots on the ground experience, but I also have the engineering background that kind of help put everything together and deliver packages. So that is kind of what I bring to the team and kind of give that input of how we can actually do the constructability and everything during your small window of opportunity to get this thing built before kids come back.
Thank you. So we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So before we put up some concepts up here, we did put together a presentation that has all the conceptual designs that we worked on for Oakwood School District 76. But before we get there, I just wanted to talk briefly about Ameresco in case this is the first time that many of you have heard about us. We are a publicly traded corporation. We have offices in, actually over 70 offices between the United States, Canada, and the UK. We have completed over $10 billion worth of projects since inception. And the way we do that is through a design build construction model, which we can talk about more as we go on here. But we work across all market segments. So a lot of K-12 work, higher education institutions, hospitals, local government. We're currently doing some projects at McCormick Place in the city of Chicago. We're doing some lighting retrofits, also for the city of Chicago. Some of these projects are $44 million for phase one. We also do a lot of work with the federal government. The Department of Defense is one of our clients, the Navy. We've recently retrofitted 121 buildings for the Parris Island facility in Virginia. And I mentioned that just to share with you, some of the relationships that we have, the trust that we have earned with large clients. If we go to the next slide, here is a little bit about our work in Illinois. We have worked with over 90 districts just in the state. I think that's actually closer to 100 now. And here's a sample list of a lot of them. We've done projects with them ranging from HVAC, roofing, windows, lighting, flooring, to some more fun stuff like building tennis courts, football stadiums, any kind of construction, we've done it, building additions, classrooms. We've done tiny projects with some of them, $50,000 and up to multiple $1 million phases, multiple phases. Actually, I think we have a slide on a project that is similar to the concept we've been talking here with building some additional classrooms. And so we can talk about that, how that's currently going, or, any challenges that the district might have had and how we're handling them, and, community input, some of those things that I know are going to be important here too. So that is what I want to say about Illinois. I think we can jump right into the drawings. We have about 7 of them, so we have a slide for each one of them, so we can kind of discuss as we go along. But please interrupt at any point if you have any questions. That's what we're here for. We really just want to present these in person and answer any questions that you guys have.
All right.
Go up first.
If you don't mind, we'd like to kind of get in front of the screen. That way we
Absolutely.
kind of get a better idea of what we're looking at. It's kind of hard with that side view in the shadow. So what we was asked to do was we said, okay, we got 8 classrooms. How can we make this work within the building footprint that you have? And so when we started brainstorming, we were thinking, okay, how, given the size of classrooms, given the amount of space, given what the site plan looked at, what made the most sense in terms of egress and being able to basically social interactions with the kids. Obviously, sometimes you don't really want, on one side, you don't want to allow them mixing sometimes, so you try to figure out a way to routes, all those different type of aspects. So those are all the different things that we take into consideration. And so given that scenario, we went from everything from the 8 classroom to a 10 classroom to a 2-story. So just to kind of give you the snapshot, you're gonna be seeing a lot of different layouts, and it's just because of how we can kind of figure how we can map this all out. The idea is we're kind of giving the idea of what we're looking for direction. So we want to give you as much information as possible, because I know this is going to be a lot to take in at the first time. But once you actually can sit back and digest it, you're like, okay, option A and option C really does make sense, or option D and option E really does make sense. Then you can cut us loose to go to the next step to try to get things really kind of fine-tuned. Part of the fine-tuned design has a lot to do with interaction with personnel with the administration, personnel with the teachers, personnel with everybody that's going to be, what do they call those, team sponsors that are going to be part of this project. And part of my responsibility, and one of the projects that we're going to be showing later on, is basically getting to know the ins and outs of what your teachers need, what your administration needs, and what really makes sense with giving the parameters of what we're going to work with. So with doing that, I find out the little details of what the teachers want, what the teachers need. And also at the end of the day, when we all get done with this and we turn the keys over to the key to the car, because it's basically a turnkey project, is that you're going to sit there and go, the teacher's going to sit down and go, yes, I took part of this, my work was actually heard, and I participated in how this plays out in design. So when she goes and sits in her classroom, we are be able to tell other school districts is, yeah, these guys listen. These guys told me, I told them what I wanted, and they delivered. And that is what our job is, to basically listen and deliver. So if you want to start the first phase.
Yep, so this was the original concept when Larry called us and said, we're looking to put a minimum of 8 classrooms on the building. What would that look like? And we said, well, pretty simply, you can put 8 classrooms across kind of your playground area, right? That was the discussion we had. As we go through these, we've got about 8 concepts, I think. The blue is going to be the only part that changes. If it's in white, it's an existing part of your building already, just to help orient where you're at, okay? Right now, your playground, the blacktop's in the middle. You can see the basketball arena, the cafeteria is to the left side of that, if you're familiar with grade school. So this was kind of our first concept. It draws straight across your playground. We're going to have to do some work. Your blacktop would stay the same. The playground needs to be relocated, and there's literally no other spaces. It was the first pass, and we had 8 classrooms to fit on this spot of land. So that was our discussion. We came down, we walked the site, we were looking at some existing conditions, what's connected to the building, what's going on, and we came up with a series of other concepts. So if we go to the next one, this was, again, we're looking for input. These are all concepts. I have my favorite. Ron has his favorite. Sometimes we agree depending on the day. So this is all for discussion. This is 10 classrooms. The playground gets modified, but only shrunk a little bit in your chipped area that has the playground equipment. The blacktop is essentially gone over with part of the building. But this does offer a new junior high office and an entrance to the north and a new set of restrooms for that wing of the building. So we've expanded from the original 8 concepts and moved into this area. It came up as part of our discussion while we were walking it that we'll be moving staff and be looking for some office space and some different services on top of just having classrooms.
Well, the idea too is if you start with the 8 classrooms, then you figure you basically go, it's kind of an equation to figure out, okay, how many restroom sets do you have? How many kids do you have in the school? Capacity, load, everything that has to meet code compliance. Everything that we do is all within code compliance. So everything that we follow guidelines all the way down the line. So in doing so, whenever you start jumping from 8 classrooms to 9 classrooms, 10 classrooms, and then you start talking about office space and everything else, you do have to have the restroom set. So part of our concept is, okay, part of the design, how do we tap this in? How do we do it? Now with us having just the preliminary idea of what we're doing, we're kind of figuring out, okay, this is a concept, this is our plan of attack, and how are we going to route this? And so that is when you see anything above this 8, you're going to have the restroom sets on there, you're going to have the office space, you're going to have entryways, because I know there was talk about you kind of want the middle school guys to be able to enter in their own way, and they won't have to necessarily come through the school and pass by all the little guys. But that's just kind of building on why you're going to see these in a lot of the different.
Yep. We'll do the next one, please. Again, concepts, this is 2 stories. We've got 11 classrooms, offices. It modifies the playground and the blacktop the least probably out of any of the designs that go into this area. But we've hit the need for an elevator, 2 sets of stairs for fire egress. It does give you the most number of classrooms, I think, out of all of the layouts we've got set up. Again, it's another concept we have going for it. So
Yeah, and the reason, back to code compliance, we're definitely, if we end up going to a second story, we got to make sure we make all the ADA needs that are required. So in doing so, then we're adding the restroom sets that are ADA, we're adding the elevators that are ADA, everything that's going to be compliant in order to make that second story happen.
Mm-hmm. Next, please. So we went the other way with this design, right? We pushed out into your parking lot. We removed one of the classrooms and put together kind of a gathering area. So there's a net total of 9 classrooms and an office. We're building 10 classrooms, but you're losing 1, so that's what we're saying, net 9. It's into the parking lot area. It will require some different looking into your parking needs and that kind of assessment if this is the desire. However, we don't touch any part of the playground and blacktop. So all of that area remains the same for all of the kids through lunch hours and playtime. I know there's discussion about the shed and some issues there. We can obviously wrap any of the needs that into part of the construction as a phase, but in this case, we said we're not going to touch the playground area for the kids. We saw them having fun while we were doing our assessment. Most of them asking us what we were doing. So this does include the new entrance and junior high office towards the south area down there on the backside of where the library is at. There's some spaces around it. On to D, please. So concept D pushes and does a little bit of what we talked about each way. We push out into the parking lot a little bit and give you an office and 2 classrooms on that end. But we've gone the other way and added 8 classrooms kind of in over what's currently where the dumpster sits, where the dumpster backs in. The playground is shrunk a little bit to allow for some egress and spaces around the building, but it kind of gives you a little bit of both worlds where we're not taking down a huge section of the playground space, but we're rerouting a little bit of your parking spots again.
Well, one of the things too to consider is whenever we start modifying playgrounds, when we start modifying the site itself, obviously things we'll take into consideration is like your bus traffic, your parent pickup traffic, everything along those lines. So we will work with you guys to help figure out how the routing goes, especially if we end up coming into the parking lot area. You'll lose parking spots. How do we gain those parking spots? They normally have a bus route. How do we make sure that they've got enough of a turn and are not in the way of any other kids so they can still safely get out? Those are all the things that we kind of put into this equation. So when he starts talking about, any type of situation with parking lots or playgrounds, when we're finished, everything is going to be basically put to where it almost makes it's always been part of the project.
So the next 2 options are concepts that came back. We looked at these when we walked the site. We had a discussion about it. And there was a desire to see what it would be like if we connected the two wings and basically put the playground into a courtyard space. So this is similar to our first option, except we've added 8 classrooms. Of course, it goes across the playground. Your blacktop remains the same. This, as a change from the first concept, the original, adds offices and restrooms. To make that connection and meet some egress needs that you're going to have for safety, fire egress, code compliance, it adds a corridor and moves 4 of the classrooms to an interior space. So we'll have some work in those classrooms to modify the heating systems that currently vent out the sidewall right now. That sidewall is now going to be an inside wall. So we'll be making some modifications to existing space, but your playground will be completely enclosed. Right? The next, please. This last concept, similar to the last one, is connecting the east side and west side. But what we've done is removed that corridor, so we only touch one of the classrooms that we may be able to modify the HVAC at a lesser extent to make that. It does provide a connection back and forth. This is going to require some different code review of your current emergency egresses to the building, to make sure, for example, that the doors that currently exit into the courtyard out of the gym, you can't exit into an enclosed space for fire egress. So we'll be checking to make sure that you got enough other egress out of the gym afterwards. A lot of times we go have these conversations with ISB, who does the code review for schools, along with the local fire marshals, the authority having jurisdiction over that. We've held off having that conversation yet until we get feedback on which design. They rarely like it when we start a project with 8 designs and want them to comment on all of them. So we're looking for a little input from your team as to which way to go, and then we can go have those further discussions to make sure that we incorporate all that they're going to want to see. This next one we have up here, the next slide, is I'm going to turn over to Rob, who is doing a fantastic job under current construction at another school.
So this project's in Chillicothe, Illinois. So the school has approached us about the possibility, they were kind of feeling kind of claustrophobic with their science wing. And so they wanted some STEM labs, they wanted to upgrade and compete with Peoria in terms of what they can bring to, the people coming into the district to kind of show off what they can do. And part of what we did was we actually had a number of interior classrooms that they wanted to remodel. And then basically upgrade to upgraded equipment. We're actually giving them more of an industrial look, no ceilings, reels. Part of this whole project had to deal with back to meeting with teachers. I met with probably about 6 or 7 different science, biology, chemistry, physics teachers and got all their input, got all their needs, and incorporated into the project. This project is being done during the school year. So what's happening is we actually have a containment within the area that we're working. We work strongly with the schools to figure out when bus pickups are, when bus drop-offs are. We give the kids a route to where everything is 100% safe. We would normally stop construction whenever pickup, drop-off type of thing, just to make sure everything is in good shape. And then that way we kind of make sure that we got ourselves contained to where it's not going to disrupt any of your normal activities. We try to limit any type of disruption to the school unless we get permission. So this project entailed a lot of creativity in terms of, there's a lot of coordination that had to be done because there was a lot of asbestos abatement that had to be done prior to even getting in there. So we got in there, got that, we're getting that stuff knocked out during the summer, because obviously this area right here, we have no way to get into until school's out, which is actually Monday. So we're actually going to mobilize and start doing the containment there. But in the meantime, we got construction going on the outside of the building. We got the frame pretty well getting it dried in, and we're over town. Part of this commitment that I have with the school is that, hey, we're going to get you in before school starts. And that is that is kind of the drive that I have when I come to these projects is, how do we make this work? How do we make this to where I know that if we break ground, get equipment ordered, and have things setting, that all it's going to be a matter of manpower and trying to make sure that we can kind of fit within these schedules. Manpower is huge. And what I pride ourselves on is the fact that we use local trades 99% of the time. The only time that we probably don't is if you have a resource that you're not available, that we have to pull from a bigger area, whether it be Springfield or St. Louis or in Chicago. So it's one of those things that we will utilize whatever we have. We have the ability, resources to back up things. So if we run into slow delays and everything, we have the resources to jump in to speed up schedule. But going back to the local trades, I like bringing everybody on board. I like them being part of the team. They know better than I do about local codes and everything that's involved with the school. If they've been in the school and they are your electrician, they are your plumber. They've been in the school more than I have. They will be able to know all the skeletons in the wall. So when I come to you and say, we're doing this, we're doing this. And so plus I also they get that pride of knowing that I'm building this. This is part of my community. This is part of my school. So we take that into the next step to where we make sure that everybody's involved, the teachers all the way through the contractors who are our community. So kind of snapped up.
You can tell we're a little passionate about making sure we meet the schedule. If we go back just real quick. I didn't warn Rob until I put them in here. Those photos are current as of last Friday on our construction report that went to the district. Rob does a nice job of putting together an update weekly that includes photos so the district can keep track of what's going on and are we on schedule and are we not. So that is active current construction going on. In fact, I think you're headed over there tomorrow.
Yes, I'm heading there from here. So a lot of times with the progress reports, you'll get weekly progress meetings and updates about what's going on and that you can share with your board, share with the community. And so they know from day one where things are going. And then they also will know that, hey, they're working Saturday. Oh, they're working Sunday. Oh, it's 10 o'clock at night. They're just not finishing a shift. Those are things that we do to make it work. But on the same thing, communication is huge. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough is that you know everything that's going on. We're just transparent to get everything knocked out because at the end of the day, I want to turn the keys over to you to tell them all this year.
Okay, all right. We've got the next steps. Does anybody have questions? We've just blew through 8 options.
Yeah. A lot of information.
We've been in it. It's a lot of info. So happy to go back, talk about any of them if you want to. Larry, if you guys have preferences, anybody else on the board? Otherwise, we can kind of go through the next steps from here.
Does the board have any questions at this point on? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sounds like you're doing a great job.
We call the next step concept refinement. That's where we're looking for your input on preferred design concepts. You know, like A and C, F, and D. We want to go up the stairs to the second floor. We don't want to go anywhere near a second floor. I should go back to that. Also, the gym's right next to us. The second floor is only about as tall as the gym floor, so it's not like it's going to be a section of the building that's that tall. Grant said earlier. So what we'll do is we'll take those, we'll refine the detailed scope. We have some of those discussions I mentioned before, and we update and refine the budgets. At this point, we've shared some budgets on where these ranges are, and you can tell some of them are a lot more expensive than others, probably based on square footage and features. After that, we come back and meet with you guys, whoever is on the review committee, if it's the entire board, if it's a small breakout group that looks first, and then we come back and present those to Larry, whoever you tell us to. It'll be the board, the teachers, the community, if that's the way that it goes for a discussion. And then we'll finalize designs and finalize the pricing. Now, when we look at pricing, we're looking at turnkey for everything. That involves design, that involves all of the investigation we're doing now, that involves the construction, and that involves all of the commissioning at the end. Typically, I know your process would be to have an architect on staff who does all that up front, and then you've got costs that they're helping you generate that goes out to bid, and you see those costs separately. We can discuss it that way. That's not the budgets we've put together so far. So far, our budgets are inclusive of everything, so that come next fall, you have, as Rob called, at least a car to start all your classes in there. From that point, with the finalized pricing, we go to the contract execution, we turn in the finalized drawings, engineered, stamped, designed for the permit application, and we break ground. And then we work all summer long, hopefully not until 10 o'clock every night. But
You got a schedule. You got a schedule.
we got to hit the schedule so that your students have a place to be.
Absolutely.
So I think that's it. Thank you slide at the end. But we're happy to entertain any other questions, concerns, comments.
So I've looked at some of these, but so everybody can hear, tell me about, you talked about, you have preliminary numbers. What's our cheapest one was the one you guys probably drew at the beginning, that
Yes.
classroom. What's that price?
We were designing to your ESSER funding at that
Okay.
point. So that was a budget of 2.5 million to say, here's your classrooms, here's, new walls, new ceilings, new lights, HVAC, everything else. Unfortunately, the pricing kind of goes up from there.
And probably the other end was a 2-story with the elevator and that.
Correct. Yeah, the elevator and the structural, absolutely, yes.
That was pushing 6, correct?
No.
Okay.
I think it was 4.5, but
4.5,
the story
okay.
was about the highest. Yeah, when we first worked, we looked at the 8 classrooms, the conversation Larry and I had was, can we build 8 classrooms for 2.5? And we looked at historical data for the other projects that we had done and looked at, approximate cost for that square footage. And was like, yeah, like you barely fit like really 8 classrooms in that budget, and then it was like, well, let's ask ISB if this would even fly, right? Because then we don't want to go down the road of more design. And so ISB approved it. So then now we're looking at an office, a couple more classrooms, bathroom set. And so those are some of the variables that, make those fluctuate.
I mean, the other thing is that elevator with 2 stories has your most number of classrooms.
Mhm.
So
Room for expansion.
But also elevators and stairs. So
Yeah.
that's why that option. Yeah.
Mhm. Sure.
So Mr. Maynard, I'll ask you, tell us about, we're in a bit of a time crunch, correct? Tell us about that.
Okay. Well, I think probably the number one question that we have, it seems like that Amoresco has done a great job of answering all the questions that I've had for them. Bare bones, what can we do for $2.5 million? We can't have anything less than 8 classrooms. What would that look like? That was provided. And then after our discussions was, well, what about opportunity for growth? What about an opportunity for growth? Are we going to be locked in? And we need some room for that. So that's when we talked about 10 classrooms. Could we find 10 classrooms, and what would that look like? And so once we went from there, that's how these different options expanded that I wanted to be able to provide to you so that you could be thinking through what you think is the best avenue for our kids and our community, and then within what budget frame we're going to be looking at. In terms of the timeline, I think the big thing is just deciding whether or not this is what we want to do. That's really the number one question. Do we want to use $2.5 million for construction? It seems like we can move forward with that to some degree, but I think the big question that Michelle and Chris and I, as we're working through this, is we just need to know whether or not this is a direction we want to go as a school board, because if not, then we've got to figure out another way to utilize $2.5 million. If we are, then that writing of that grant become a lot easier. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it becomes clearer. How's that, Michelle? Becomes clearer for her, because then we know this is what we're going to do with this bucket of funds. And right now, we're just not really sure exactly what the interest of the board is. And so we need some direction from you on that. And that's why tonight was important for discussion, just to see what your thoughts were at this point. Either, basically kick me out of the room and say, this is a bad idea, or, hey, let's keep moving forward and exploring this. We think that this really has some ways of adding value to our educational process at Oakwood and our community for the future. So I'm excited because I feel like when I look at this is a one-time opportunity. Never do you get federal dollars for construction. And we just got $2.5 million minimum for that. And I feel like that if this is something long before Larry historically that the board has discussed as a possibility of trying to figure out some solutions for our 7th and 8th grade kids and our staff there. And to me, everything is just lining up that we need to really seriously look at that. You know, that's how I see it as superintendent for us. So that's why I've been working with Amoresco to try to get these wheels in motion for you. So I don't know if I answered your question, you know, Mr. Smith. As obviously I have a lot of thoughts about it, but it does excite me for our kids and our community, because I know that I shouldn't say I know. This is just a really unheard of opportunity, and I want to maximize it, you know, as best we can. So we just kind of need to know really what the board's thoughts or questions are, especially with Amoresco being here. If there's anything at all that you want to see again or have a question about, I'm sure they're very service-minded and are here for you.
One question I would have is, we know that the cost of construction's quite high right now. Everybody's saying, hold off if you're going to do anything. If we sign a contract with you, are we locked in those at those prices? Or if we see an increase, is there a little something in there that says we're going to, okay,
That risk is on us.
okay.
And the sooner we lock in the prices, the sooner we lock in the sinking fund.
Okay.
So that protects all.
That's a great question.
Yeah, part of our model, sorry, Bob, just to finish that, part of our model is no change orders.
Okay.
So when we do arrive at desired scope and budget, and we do lock in with the contract, there might be other site conditions that we run into, because in construction, you always find something after you break ground. That's on us. And so our model is also a transfer of risk from the school district to Amoresco. So we always do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Just have one somewhat of a question, is that if it's a no-brainer, you're getting $2.5 million, you're going to spend it. But going down the road, as you're looking at, should I do the one for 2.5 or 3.3 or all the way down to 4.5? Who will be responsible to say that if I spend X in transportation and in salaries and in maintenance and the old boiler that's gone, how much money are we saving?
Yeah.
Because by doing that, it give you the luxury or the enthusiasm to say, wait a minute, guys, I know this looks big that we're going to spend another $1 million above it, but we can repay that in 4 years or 5 years or 6 years by having these lower costs. Yeah. And then you don't go out there with some shock factor, because the first thing you're going to do is somebody's going to run out and pay you, spend their COVID check. Well, this is something that we'd like to do and make it a little bigger and a little forward looking. So it's pretty nice to have that.
And as part of our development team, I have a lot of smart engineers that'll figure out not only working with your transportation group to discuss what transportation changes would be, but we'll calculate efficiencies on that boiler and how inefficient it's working compared to what we're putting in, along with the lighting consumption and goals for the existing junior high, and we'll calculate what the making table should be there.
And that'll be a fast track.
Oh,
I mean, you'll be able to tell us that quick, not.
Yes. We
Okay.
expect there to be savings.
Absolutely.
On the energy side, as well as operational savings, like you mentioned, based on factors like transportation.
Okay.
Well, Larry, we know that the boiler is going to go. Do we know what that would cost us to replace it? Just off the top, I mean, just
It's around
something like
$300,000.
$300,000, okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if that price would include removing the old one.
Okay.
So there's additional cost there as well that can sometimes that can be more, depending on how old they are.
Yeah, you could get down there with your torch and cut it apart and take it out piece by piece.
That's right.
Yeah,
For like 3,000.
yeah. I'm Leo Johnson, by the way, for those of you that don't know me. I worked here back in the 14-15 school year. Some of you might remember me from then, but I work with Amoresco as a consultant. I did some projects with Amoresco when I was city superintendent, sitting in your seat, from your side of things. These are the technical people right here. All I know is what it's like on your side. And they've already mentioned several of the key things that certainly sold me on performance contracting in general and Amoresco specifically. That's the turnkey nature of what they do, the risk transference. When you come to a price, it's the price. Anyone that's done a building project with the other route knows it's never the price, no matter what they tell you. And the data that you're talking about right now, that you're talking about bringing up, they just supply the data that you need. I'd get questions from my community. I'd have to get back to them. I'd be calling a different person at that time, but the same people. As I get it, and then I had something to bring to the board, to take to the community, and just extremely helpful in that respect. So I have a lot of confidence when I promote Amoresco myself. So I like the idea of, from Larry's seat and from your seat, like the idea of doing something permanent with a one-time money type thing, something that will be there for a long time, not just spending it on things that are consumed. I'm a part-time business manager at Rural Foresight as well. Just keeping busy in retirement. And we're doing the same thing. We're getting our ESSER money, and it's a good sized chunk of money for Maroa, about $900,000, not $2 million, but we're doing the same thing. We're brainstorming on what can we do that's permanent. This money's never going to be there again, and we're going to have a plan in place. Some of it's some long overdue curriculum, but some of it are other things that the district will have 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and longer. So. I'm here to answer any questions from your side of the table that you would like.
Mr. Maynard, if I may. I was on a committee 15 or 20 years ago, the Buildings and Grounds Committee, and this is one of the recommendations that we made, was to find a way, even 20 years ago, to find a way to shut down that building and decrease costs. Many of the recommendations of the Building and Grounds Committee never made it very far. The Curriculum Committee did a lot of good work. But I would be thrilled as a community member, longtime community member, this would be a great.
Yes, it would.
Great. Especially since that money is there.
I agree.
It's good historical perspective. I appreciate that.
I think one question I would have also, I don't know if it's a question or a statement. You said you would use local. Do you bid that out locally? How do you treat that?
Yeah, so a lot of times, if you have multiple electricians,
Okay.
plumbers, we'll give them all the opportunity to
Okay.
bid on it. We have enough relationship that is, some districts, we try to keep it, if it's within reason, we
Sure.
will come have a discussion with you. But we want to make sure we're doing what's best for the district.
Right. Thank you.
Another advantage I forgot to mention, the use of local business. I made sure at Pontiac that we used every local electrician that wanted some of the work, every local plumber that wanted some of the work. It's an important part of doing it by this model.
That's very dear to my heart that you keep this local.
Yeah, you're not tied to the lowest bidder from Chicago,
Yeah.
Des Moines, whatever. You can direct this as local as you would like.
And that's part of our budget refinement. So we're refining pricing is bringing in more contract, our own historic pricing, excuse me, to come up with this, because we didn't want to call other contractors and ask them for their.
Okay.
So now that it's out in the community, we can take that step and start having those.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that helped to guide me towards Amoresco for performance contracting concept is that being in some superintendent cohorts for a few years and having this be a part of the training that you're in the Illinois School of Advanced Leadership. And so I listened to too many superintendents, those that were new, those that were very experienced, talk about the challenges that they had in construction and having to go out and get all the different bids and all the different construction and piecemeal the project together in a way that you always run into some snags, you always run into challenges, and then you go to this person, they say, well, I'm not that person, you need to talk to this person. And you go to that person to find out, okay, well, the plumbing's not right here. Well, that's not us, that's this person. And you're just chasing all the time, and the work's not getting done, and the frustration levels go up, and so does your price usually. that was basically the research that I did with other superintendents. When I say other superintendents, I've got a boxer group of about 45 that I connect with in any moment for resources. So that led to the performance contracting concept, because what really was exciting to me was that was an opportunity to get the work done, to have everything systematically aligned. And I've got one person I'm working with, and I know who Brian is, and I know who Robert is, and I know who Leo is, and I have that connection, that relationship. I know who to go to, and they're not going to run me around, the barn, so to speak. And the communication has been outstanding, and that helps me to build trust, when I'm working with people on something that is a big deal. So that's kind of what led out of kind of a different way of building and construction to performance contracting. So I don't know if I said that correctly for performance. Okay, so I can speak at your next event as a sponsor for you. I'm just kidding.
You're gonna replace me?
Yeah.
That's what I learned. That's what I learned from you.
That's
So
like spot on. If I can add to that, yes, at the end of the day, we are responsible for our contractors. And so we will, yes, deal with any issues or concerns or, potential change orders that will come up, and we would own that. And, work on that with them of how are we going to resolve this.
Then what's our next step?
So what do you see as our next step? The board deciding whether or not we want to do construction. That's probably the big question, right? And then if so, what models of interest?
Yeah, if you could maybe narrow it down some to a couple.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you want to go back, Chris, one slide. If you give us a selection of preferred designs, then we will basically start refining that scope of work and doing some of that competitive bidding process. We will basically start on that. Actually, you guys don't want to work on.
Nope, you're fine.
Next steps. Okay.
That is the next step, and that actually leads us to be able to do your question about comparison of shutdown, parallel to refining the design and moving forward. So we talked about refined budgets. We'll be needing to have some discussions on what it costs to operate in junior high and owners, and then by refining the design, we'll be able to estimate what the new building will cost to run. And we'll be able to do that comparison to show you what the differential.
You would know all those things before we enter into a contract.
Okay.
You would know all those savings calculations.
Mrs. Burton, I always hate to put somebody on the spot, but I will for just a moment. I've got a student in your building, and you guys have done a phenomenal job this past year. It's been a challenging year, and you guys have overcame some challenges out there. Tell me about your thoughts on this.
I'm a little overwhelmed too. It's a lot.
And you don't have to talk about concepts,
Yeah.
but in your mind.
In my mind, this is a good move for Oakwood, because out there, poor Chris gets me calling and begging, find me a carrier pigeon, find me a way to get these kids connected. Because that is the way of the future. Our kids are so limited from that. And that is the key. And also resource, if I'm in there, I got a nurse again, full time. And those little things are big. When I've got 3 teachers out because we've got something going on, we can reach down. I've got people there in the building instead of calling here to the unit office and asking somebody to come out and help to cover. That networking, I think, will be very huge for our building. At Central here in Oakwood would be awesome. I love that building. I love Little Wonka Land, but what's best for our kids would be down.
Mrs. Burton also has experience as a principal with the middle school concept. And
Yes.
this alignment would provide that opportunity, different than a traditional junior high concept, of bringing the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders together in all the different areas of curriculum instruction. So
With the new concept of moving them to the grade school, what about like the cafeteria space and the gym space? Like, what's adding in 2 more grade levels? do you have room for kids to have eating? And do you have room, where are you gonna put the, you guys are already kind of at capacity right now with your lunchroom space. So where would your junior high go?
We'd have to rework the schedule, what it would come down to. There wouldn't be necessarily another place to put them for lunch. We would just have to rework the lunch schedule.
You'd have to add another lunch hour.
With the gym, we have a curtain, so it basically have to be split the gym.
And then the size of the kitchen in the grade schools, can you do the extra, like 150 lunches and breakfasts? They're able to.
That'd be a Sheila question.
I only think there's tops 80 lunches, hot lunches a day. What'd you say, Ms.
Yeah.
Barton? Tops.
You
So-
know, we'll have to have seating for
Right.
154 kids for lunch.
Right.
But our hot lunches usually go about 55 to 58.
So when you think in terms of pre-COVID, when we could fill up a full table of students on both sides, I don't think that would be an issue, because we could look at like 5th and 6th grade having lunch together, 6th and 7th. We could put some grade levels together if restrictions are loosened up to where they can all fill up the table. So,
And I'll
possible.
go with my thoughts as a former student of Oakwood Grade School. I had PE in that gym that's part of cafeteria now. It's not being used part of the day when it's not a cafeteria. Why couldn't we throw some lower kids PE in there too? I mean, it's just, there's a lot of stuff we'd have to look at to do. But, I mean, for me, the technology is a big thing, because the location of that junior high is just not good to the needs that it has.
Well, I will also say transportation. I agree technology is probably number one, but as someone who lives up that way, it's not just the buses that go up and down that you would be saving, but think of all the community drives that parents are making for events. You would be helping out the community by saying, hey, your events are now at Oakwood, a much more central location than a building that really is barely even in our district.
And a gym that has room for cheerleaders, and a gym where you're not packed, where you can only have 7th grade parents in, and then they have to go out for 8th grade parents. You've got out of balance. And again, we like that little gym, but what an opportunity for our community and our visitors. What a showcase for us.
I agree a little bit with Jessica's, or a lot with Jessica's concern, is that the high school, I mean, somewhere we need, and we do away with the gym at the junior high. Somewhere we do need an auxiliary gym. Now, it doesn't have to come out of this $2.5 million, but I strongly believe that somewhere in these plans, before we box everything in, whether the auxiliary gym goes to the high school or goes to the grade school, I'm pretty sure we're short.
Yeah.
And I've known people doing scheduling, and
As somebody who is sometimes reliant on gym availability, are you at the grade school? Can you get to the junior high? And then you got 6 basketball seasons going on at the same time, and 3 facilities cutting that down to 2. Where are you gonna go? What's gonna happen with softball, baseball in the spring when they're rained out? Where are they gonna go? I think there's a lot more of that logistical stuff that you're gonna have to balance.
I think this is
around.
a great idea. I'm just saying, okay, step 2, where's the auxiliary gym? And let's don't box us in and spend so much money that we can never get to that auxiliary gym, because
Sure.
I like the high school gym, but it's,
From this standpoint right here, you're gonna have to have another bathroom in this addition, because that 5-6 bathrooms will not handle what we're doing now sometimes. So if you're gonna add another 150 kids, somewhere there's gotta be a bathroom in there. And some space to have a little storage. I mean, you haven't talked about any storage, but the bathroom is gonna be a big issue in that grade school, because they're lined up now trying to get the bathrooms. And some days that bathroom can't handle because the flow is just tremendous. I mean, it's gonna have to be a bathroom where you're looking at problems down the road. Because when you get basketball games in there, it's gonna even be harder on that. When you're talking already adding these kids down here next year for basketball, that 5, 6 bathrooms takes a beating. So I think a bathroom area is really gonna be important for this project.
You mentioned the high end and the low end, so if you did a straight 10 rooms with your bathroom and office space or whatever that was, without going second floor, what is that number? Grab a couple of different ones.
Like, wasn't that 3.5? In that range? We have some 3.3 to 3.7. So I think we can
And
definitely.
those are the ones that stick out into the existing parking lot or something like that.
And the one that came
Yes.
in.
Yeah,
And then
we're kind of in between there, and as you add classrooms, the number goes up,
Right.
basically at this phase in price.
What would we do with the, how much upkeep would it cost just if the junior high, with it sitting empty? I mean, what would we do with it? What would be the upkeep of the building?
Yeah, I think that's one of the questions, what do you do with that? I did have someone walk through the building, to look at it. I'm not saying that they're interested in the building. I don't know if it's going to meet their needs or not, but those types of things kind of come along, and you're either looking at selling it, so to speak, or you're looking at, demolition, and there's the cost in that. One of the revenues that's been brought to my attention is that we are getting ready to expire one of the Village of Oakwood TIFs. And every piece of communication that I have had from the village is that they're not looking to renew that TIF agreement, which means when it expires, that money would then come to the school district. That's approximately around $300,000 a year.
What is it?
The TIF district,
Oh,
taxing
TIF.
district.
Yeah.
Tips. I bet you said tip. I'm like, what is?
TIF,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Do we
that
have
kind of takes the
to-
place of what we lost with the county facility sales tax that we fought so hard
Yeah.
to try to get. It's just another avenue of revenue that we don't currently have.
And what's the date on that?
I believe that expires, check here, I'll be right with you. I believe that expires in December of
It's
this
soon.
year.
It's
So
soon.
January 1 of 22,
Okay.
I believe.
Can I ask, Ann, what do you see as, Mrs. Burns?
What do you see as the cons of coming to Oakwood?
The con is gonna be a paradigm shift. Because it is a small group and you're used to having just 7th and 8th, and we're gonna have to open up to see that we're part of this bigger being that's Oakwood School District. I think we get that, but I mean, just that piece. It's just a new family, it's addition of our family. I mean, we've always been family, but to live in that same building. I don't see any real cons. I've come from a building that was K-8, I've taught in the K-8 building, I've taught in the 712 building. So this is the only time I was alone. So it works. You make it work, you do what's best for kids. So I don't see cons. Thank you for asking.
Do you, as the grade school, do you guys see, I mean, the pros probably outweigh the cons, but do you guys see some major concerns with having 7th and 8th grade come to you?
I don't see major concerns with them coming. I see those scheduling pieces that we have to work out and sit down with our teams to get ironed out. No huge concerns, because I think in terms of what they presented to us, they're going to be more of a middle school concept. So they don't have to be necessarily separated from us and our little people, but they can have that feel of this is our wing, or this is our upper floor. So I think they're still going to have that feel, but I think the pros in how this could impact our kids so much with academics. I think of, my 6th grade team, whom I love, and I wouldn't want them to be considered middle school, but I know that's what's best for the kids. No, because I love them. But I think of their specialties. So I think in terms of Nicole Johnson, who is amazing at both science and math, how she could, embrace being part of that. And then you've got, Carol, who's amazing at writing and reading. So all of these things where we can have more teachers specializing in their areas of specialty and strength. Huge for our middle school kids. And then I just think in terms of accessibility with the internet, I mean, they need to have access to that. And I think it'll be beneficial. And we can also have them being leaders and role models for our little people and supporting them, with helping them with interventions or, just getting them out there so they can see how to be a leader and be a role model in the future. So, I don't know, what do you think?
I agree. I think the mentorship piece is huge. I think it provides the opportunity to look at different electives that we might be able to offer. Speaking on the gym space, I think, in an ideal situation, having an auxiliary gym is wonderful. Another thought would be, could we bring in a fitness area where you have, machines, elliptical, that kind of thing, and offer that as an elective? Do we look at music as an elective where we could really build our band and our departments? And that would honestly help with some scheduling issues if you had some more electives in there. But again, I think that the use of special education and being able to use resources would be huge.
Special education is a huge piece because we do have several special education teachers in our building where we could shift those caseloads around to where, Mrs. Pilkington could be picking up some of the junior high kids along with, some 5th and 6th graders. So that will serve a huge purpose for our special education department.
Well, and developmentally right now, junior high kids are constantly in transition. They come from the grade school, 7th grade, that's the first year of being independent. Then in 8th grade, they're getting ready to transition to high school. If we go back to middle, they have a chance to find some peace and independence before they get ready for that other transition. I think that 3 years definitely is going to open things up. And again, as Mr. Maynard said, that's how the state bans things. So let's make sure that that flow is there.
I would think when we look at the models, I think what Bob was talking about, to know how much money we can save would have a lot to do with maybe the model that we would choose, the concept that we would choose. Which model? I think that, don't you think that's a big piece of it right there?
I think the community would really be interested.
I do too, yes. And I think the sooner we would know that, I think the quicker a decision could be made. I'm bored. I'm thinking we're going to have some special meetings, aren't we?
We enjoy each other, so let's do it.
Is there ever, is it an option to sell the junior high and roll that into the opportunity to have this auxiliary gym?
Yeah, it just, putting a building up for auction, that the public owns is another process, obviously, that the attorneys would guide us through. But yeah, that would be a bucket of revenue that could be placed specifically for another need. Yeah, exactly.
We did it once, 20 years ago with Diamond. You want to do it again?
Mrs. Kimbrough from Hercule.
Well, I've kind of been thinking about this a lot longer than just being presented today, and I don't sleep anymore, so it's just constantly going around in my head. But there are a lot of pros to it, and everything that's been brought up is I've kind of thought about. We talked about transition, and just to take that transition piece out, I think is huge for a kid. Because there's a little anxiety about going to the junior high, and then you have anxiety about going to the high school, where this kind of streamlines. I do like the middle school concept, but I love that 5th grade is right there too. So we're not separate. And we have these 11:30 days. By the time we would eat and travel, there's no time to collaborate. And granted, I laid off the collaboration. I left people alone this year, but I'm going to be back again next year to say, let's get together. I got the instructional coach hired. we need to do this. And having them in the same building is huge. But again, 6 through 8 working together is great, but 5th and 6th working together is great too. So you have an advantage for the middle school, but you also have, like again, a K through 8 curriculum. So that's one thing. Another concern that we have all this money and we're putting it in a building. Well, ESSER 2 or ESSER 3 requires you to spend 20% for bridging the gap, the learning gap. And so that's $440,000. And what we will do is take the $440,000 out of the 2.2. Anyway, there's a way to do it where we will still spend that money and still have the 2.2. I just got to take it as a set aside in ESSER 2 to do 3. That's kind of why this timeline is here, because I got to write 2. And if there's a building, I got to set aside and get approval for that. But Chris gave me his perfect world technology list for every building. And John gave me his, how are we going to get this clean? What do we need? Everything for our custodial supplies. I did a needs assessment for curriculum, for what the students need, what teachers need, what is best, and have compiled those. And we can still do that and get this building. And I think that's the most important part. We're not sacrificing technology as in Promethean boards for the other buildings. We're not sacrificing cleaning supplies or things that we need. Our curriculum, we're going to get a new math curriculum in a couple years. Right now we're looking at reading and we're looking at social studies. Like, we're still going to do all those things and have money to build this building. And that is never going to happen again. You know what I mean? Like, this is, no one's going to give you $2.2 million to do this again. So it's, time is of the essence, but it's just like, next year we can't say, you know what, we should have done that, because that money is going to be gone, because I got to write that 2.2 million and figure out how I'm going to spend that to move forward. And there's word out that there is an ESSER 4, it's not really called that, but that's another $800,000. But I talked to ISB, they don't know anything about it, but I can find it on the website, so we're not sure what's going on. I helped him Google it, we kind of got some ideas, but, so there's just things that decisions need to be made, but to know up front that we're not missing out on anything for our kids and for our teachers to get this, to do this. I mean, if we had to sacrifice curriculum or the technology piece, I would really worry about it, because we got to do what's best. So I just wanted you to have that piece of information too before.
And anything I order for the junior high, I'm assuming this isn't going to get done over the summer to start next year. I'm assuming it's going to start the next year. So anything that I purchase technology-wise will be able to be moved from junior high to the new building. So it's not like we're going to waste any of this, anything I purchase with the grant. It'll just be rolled in and used at the new location.
So for example, the Promethean boards will not be attached to the wall. They'll be put on a cart if that's what we decide to do. And then if we would move, they'd be off the cart and attached to the new building.
What's
So
the projected time?
same thing with access points and everything else.
The projected timeline, if we got moving quickly.
Let's talk about that, because I want to ask about your timeline as well. I think we had discussed that you could potentially start construction this year if you so desired. And we will be planning on finalizing work next summer, 2022, so that you could potentially use the building for fall of 2022. Yeah, and Rob, I mean, I wanted to ask you guys if you wanted to consider starting construction this year and doing some of the things that are not disruptive to the grade school, just to get a head start. And Rob, if you want to talk about how we're doing that, or if anybody has concerns about that, I mean, please, let us know, because the timeline piece is important, because we have a lot of work ahead of us as well. Schools always have an accelerated schedule, so we have a lot of design and engineering and permitting up front. So it would help us to know if that's even an option in your mind to start like in the fall.
Okay.
I think it would be key in terms of also as far as contractor pricing, material pricing, and everything along those lines too. So the sooner that we get something locked in design and start moving forward, then we basically get all the contractors in some cases actually have stored materials. That way we know it's not going anywhere, we know we're not gonna charge any different from it, we know it's all sitting there waiting for us, so the only thing that's gonna be holding us up is ourselves. And let it go, obviously. But realistically, if we can break ground yet this year, it just gives us a jump on next year to get it turned over by.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
Anything else you need from us tonight, Diana?
Oh,
Your
not
team?
tonight. Thank you for having us. It was great to meet you all. I'll wait to hear from you, Larry, on what you would like the next steps to be.
Okay.
Yeah, we're here as a resource, so yeah, we look forward to being able to do this with you guys and for you guys. I am a mom too, so I'm very inspired by all that's happening for all these kids right now.
Yeah.
So we would be happy to be a part of it if we are so lucky.
I'll follow up with you tomorrow or Friday, our Friday phone call.
Yes, at
To
4:30
check in,
p.m.
yeah.
Yes.
All
I'm
right.
waiting.
Okay, thank you all so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Would you like something to drink or anything for your travel? Happy to.
I have my coffee already, so oh, yes, you know, I'll give you this bag there, we have some little Amoresco items, little AirPods, the brand new one. You can put it really, or as many as, yes. Yeah, hold it, already something.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I was just getting ready to tell Larry, he's held us longer than we usually stay here. We're usually here 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like, he has everything like, yeah. Yeah, Larry, long meeting tonight.
Again,
I know.
I'm hearing about it.
3 nights in a row, I think I'm wrong.
So, Mr. Maynard, real quick, to summarize our conversation. Tonight, it's not an action item. Where do we go from here as a board?
I think as a board, there has to be some discussion about any of the concepts that you saw that interest you, and to get a little bit of a consensus of narrowing it down to 2 or 3 potentially. That will help guide them a little bit, or simply saying, this is not a direction that we feel that we want to go as a board. That's probably the first answer that's needed here.
Is there a way to get it, like, copies of?
Yeah, I'll post it. I have the PowerPoint, so I'll post it to the website.
Okay. Yep.
Do you guys feel like there's some that stand out for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they were good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So going forward, probably need to have some board buildings and grounds meetings. Get some thoughts together and get it presented. Ms. Kimbrough, what do you need for your timeline to make this work?
My grant's due June 30th, and granted, I have to submit by that time, but I gotta figure out how to spend $2.2 million if we don't do the building. It's really the biggest concern that I have, because you can't submit with
You're
any
just talking
remaining
about
money.
the remaining ESSER 2 rollover to the year.
There's no
there's
no
not.
rollover.
Well, you're talking, you're gonna use some of that ESSER 2 for the
Yeah.
building.
Yeah, so what's gonna happen is June 30th, I have to turn in ESSER 2, but I had already called to see if I could do a set aside. And really, everything kind of has to be approved and reapproved by the state before I can include that in my budget. So if our consultant actually switched, which kind of hurt things, but I still called to see. So I definitely want to put $450,000 into ESSER 2 as a set aside, and then take the technology, all of that out of ESSER 3. And the way it looks, we're going to close out fiscal year 21, and then ESSER 3 will come out with the $2.2 million in July. And then I got to turn around and write that one in July, take the $450,000 that I set aside, and then put in the bridging the gap money for that and then balance that way and then set aside the rest for construction. And then take the construction money and decide what's a $500 item, what is been bidded out, what is labor, what is, so it's a lot. But it's a lot that the sooner we find out, the sooner I can start putting that together. But, you know, we decide at the end of June, and then I got a week to spend $2.2 million and so.
I think one of the things to keep in mind too, moving forward, is that the last 2 years, and it didn't have, it arrived the last 2 years with the work that we've done, but years prior to that even, of getting our school district financially, our fund balances in a place that we're healthier. And, you know, we're in the highest category of a financial rating from the State Board of Education right now, which we arrived to last year. And that's work that is done over time. It's not done immediately. So, so our fund balances are in a good place. We've got, you know, potential for some TIF revenue there. We're going to have a good finish to our school year financially this year as well. And that will be a lot different from the amendment from what we projected potentially, you know, back in September, not knowing what the COVID impact would be. So I feel like we've got some good trends that position us better today for this possibility than maybe we would have been 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, even if this money would have arrived. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you for the time tonight.
Agenda item number 5, consent agenda. I hope everybody had a chance to review the consent agenda before us. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as approved? Ms. Bradford, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Ludwig, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Motion by Bradford, seconded by Ludwig, to approve the consent agenda items as submitted. Bradford?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Hicks? Yes. Motion carried by roll call vote 1.
Agenda item number 6, board committee reports. No boards met this past month, so we have no reports. Agenda item 7, Oakwood Education Association. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I was just gonna let you guys know the elections for the officers will be held May 28th. So I will have the representatives of those offices for you guys at the next board meeting. I also wanted to share a quick letter in regards to the from the association. The OEA has noticed, the superintendent noted his report that a grievance has been filed. We would like to clarify the grievance is simple problem-solving process to smooth out misunderstandings. There's been a misunderstanding surrounding contract language, but we have every hope it will be solved at the superintendent level, which is where we are at now. We understand the board is aware of the situation due to the emails being CC'd to all of you, but it has not yet reached the board level. And for this reason, we question why it is on the agenda for tonight. Just for the record, if it were to become necessary to go to the board level, those discussions would be in closed session per the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Administration reports. Mr. Maynard.
Okay, the first thing I wanted to do was just cover the amendment. As you know, we've been talking about this most of the year, and you had a chance to take a look at the financial report. And back in September, as I mentioned a moment ago, you know, one of the concerns that we had coming in was going to be the COVID-19 impact on our expenses. We were also a year of negotiations, so we weren't really sure. So I always go through a process, as I've mentioned before, of deflating our revenues. We'll get less than maybe we think we might get from the state, so to speak, but then inflating our expenditures. And so with that being said, it was a very difficult budget to do because I'm a zero balance kind of person. You know, you're going to lose money with transportation because you only get reimbursed 80% on a good year. But that was where we were back in September. And then we monitor our cash flow sheet throughout the year. I've been working closely with Shannon as well, our bookkeeper, on the budget. And so as I look at the amendment right now as of today, I think this will change a little bit as we move forward. But I'm anticipating, instead of a $179,000 loss, a very conservative $66,000 gain at the end of the year. I think that when we get to the June 16th board meeting, which we'll have I've already posted everything, so we've met compliance and all of that. When we have our budget amendment hearing at 5:15 on the 16th, this amendment could look even more of an increase financially. But what's nice is I've got time now between now and then, June 16th, to get numbers together closer and closer. So it's just an opportunity to do an even better budget and to give a better result of how we finish the year. So I just wanted to get that into your hands so that you'd have a chance to look at the amendment. If I had to propose it today, that's what it would be. I think it'll be even better next year. So it's been a nice turn for us this year. We've done some good cost containment, and just wanted to share that with you tonight, see if you had any questions. Thank you very much. School year calendar was posted, and item 3 was already mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any questions for Mr. Mayor? Okay. Curriculum, Ms. Kimbrough.
Just finishing up assessments and English 3 finals and speech finals and seniors last day and report cards and all these things I didn't know how to do until today. So, all good.
Any questions for Ms. Kimbrough? Thank you. Oakwood High School, Mr. Lee.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I will go ahead and do Mr. Odell since he is not here. Also, we're thankful to have Mrs. Kimbrough to help us out with English. We were in a bit of a bind this year, and she stepped up in a huge way. She did miss out on the senior exam thing, but that's okay. We got to take care of it. We are interviewing English candidates, Michelle and I, and Mr. Odell. We've interviewed 2, both of them very good. So we are hopefully next week we'll be offering one, and then hopefully next board meeting we'll have one to bring to you. So pleased that there were good candidates out there. So we were thrilled with that. Going to brag a little bit. We have 2 seniors who were winners of the John Dixon Remaine County Sportsmanship Award. It's unusual to have 2 from the same school. Normally they spread out amongst the county a little bit. So we are bringing home both Aaliyah Denis in volleyball and Isaiah Ruck in boys basketball, Dixon Sportsmanship. So,
that's great.
Kudos to those 2 kids, and it was nice to see the Comets get 2 of those. Our student council, in a year of a pandemic, they have continued to do the things that they have done for years and years and years. And they were honored at the IASA State Convention for most completed service projects this year. That is statewide. They completed 5 projects, blood drives and senior citizens dinners. And I don't know what the total was, but the advisors, Mrs. Cooper and Mrs. Bear, need to be known that they've done a fine job in a tough year to get honored like that. We somehow got through senior honors night, senior picnic, and prom. We were worried about all those things. I wouldn't say they were as great or as exciting as they have been in years past, but we marked them off the calendar, and we're moving on. So graduation is coming Saturday. The stage arrived today. We had a former graduate alum who deals in mobile stages, and we were the first one to call him back in January, I believe. And I talked to him today, and he said, yeah, you were the first school to call, but we are now booked up. We are doing colleges and high schools and universities, junior highs, all over the Midwest. He mentioned Chicago, Indianapolis, New Jersey, just today is where our stage, John said, I think goes from
here to
Joliet or something, and then comes back to Catlin. So, and we have the little stage. So it is on the field now, and we'll be setting that up for Saturday. What I need to know from my board members is who is interested in presenting diplomas. We don't have a huge stage, so I don't need 7 on the stage with me, but if there's anybody who would like to be up there to present, I'll definitely do it. Ms. Ludwig, can I ask you to come in for a
Yes,
second?
you know.
Okay. The athletic reports. I'm just add on a few, or tack on a few things about what John has given you. The baseball team is fine, doing great. JV team is struggling. We cannot get games for them. Every time we get a game for them, it rains it out, or we have to move the varsity game to their field, and the JV team, I think they played once, twice, is that right, Shannon? One time. So that is a struggle, and I feel bad for these boys. We're trying to get them games, and literally, John, every day is rescheduling a game, it seems, this spring. So, but we're trying. Boys and girls track, we'll mention Aaliyah, who we've been talking about all year long, and Alan Morris were both county champs in their events. The wrestling team is outstanding. Coach Glosser has got a juggernaut there. Of course, we have lots of boys from Salt Fork mixing with them, but they are outstanding. It is too bad we do not have a state finals for these boys because they are really, really good. One thing not in his report I want to mention, we are sending, we have 2 boys qualify for state bass fishing, Reed Sperry and Dylan Bensel. When we scheduled graduation, I told Mr. Old, do not schedule any events on that day. And remember at that point when we said graduation, there was no IHSA postseason either. Well, now there is. State bass fishing is Saturday.
Oh, no.
So these 2 boys have qualified, the first 2 boys ever to qualify for IHSA state, and it is going to be on graduation day. So they've got a decision to make. And I've told them and their parents, you do what you want to do. The first day is Friday, the second day is graduation day. One boy has already backed out and said he's staying to graduate. So we mean, we're gonna have 1 boy in a boat. I don't think he'll do very well with his mark and everybody's got to see. But Reed's gonna find out, and if he does great, he may stay over there Saturday, which is okay. We'll get him his diploma when he wants to. So, I think that's all I have unless someone has a question.
Any questions, Mr. Lee? Thank you. Junior high, Ms. Burton.
Good evening. Our junior high track finished their sectionals in Watseka, and our 8th grade boys finished second. We finished all of our testing. At the end of testing, we had a fun day sponsored by Student Council. We had a dunk tank with Mr. DeLegge and Mr. Lehman and Kona Ice, and the kids really enjoyed just being out and just having a little time to themselves. Last week, my staff went out and delivered sweets and crush cans to those of academic excellence. We had over 50 kids qualify with honor roll this year, and we want to honor them for their good work. It was fun to go to their house on a Google Meet day, and they were just surprised to see us. It was a really good way to spend part of our Wednesday. Our Illinois Principal Association Student Recognition students is Saul Carrillo and Samantha Donovan. So we will honor them tomorrow in our honors assembly. We're preparing for graduation. The next 2 days is about our 8th graders. We'll have graduation pictures. We'll have an honor assembly during the school day at 9:30. We'll live stream that for our parents. Friday morning, we'll have breakfast, spend some time together, reflecting on the year, getting ready for high school, practicing so we can graduate on Saturday at 4 p.m. Next week will be our 7th grade assembly on Tuesday, and our 6th graders are going to come over and visit the building because we want to get them excited about junior high. So that is our year, and I have Mr. Smith, Ms. Bradford, and I think Mr. Priestman would like to help pass out diplomas. I didn't know if anybody else would like to join the junior high at 4 o'clock. Any takers?
Sounds like that's a lot.
Okay. That's fine. If you want to come and visit, we'll be there, and there's always next year, right?
I'll be there. I'll be there.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Mr. Bennett.
I already recognize our IPA students, but I'd like to recognize them again. Hannah Evans, Kale Thomas, and Kenzie Carpenter. They showed star behavior on a daily basis and really set an excellent example for all of their peers. So we appreciate them. Zeke's Eats came out for donuts on Tuesday and ended up with some mechanical issues. So if you know some kiddos who didn't get their donuts, they are coming back on Tuesday. I promise they will get their donuts. But the kids were so excited. And so a special thank you to Carol Moore because this was her idea and she set it up and did all of the work for it. So we appreciate her. We will have Kona Ice on the last day of school. PTO is treating all of the students to Kona Ice, so no money is needed for that. I also want to recognize our teachers teaching summer school. We have a great group of teachers: Dawn Brown, Jen Rupp, Brandy Norton, Ashley Woodard, Tiffany Johnson, and Carol Moore. So we appreciate them putting time in the summer to help some of our kiddos catch up on the skills that they need to. One last thing to recognize: Mrs. Johnson's 6th grade put in an alternate project. It's since we couldn't do Conservation Olympics, they came up with a project contest. So our kids actually took 2nd place and won $75, and they're going to have a La Patasina taco party. So La Patasina really cut them a nice deal for the $75. They're going to have 75 tacos and chips and salsa. So they did a really nice job. If you take a look, I believe it's Kickapoo, they put different species of plants out there that you can take a look at. So they did a really nice job. And then we have some dress-up days coming up next week, so those are always fun. That's it.
Any questions for Ms. LaPennis? Thank you, Ms. Acton.
All right. Well, I would like to give a shout out to Ms. LaPennis. I think that Mr. Mayor included it in the board report, but she was recently elected the communications chair, and I think she's amazing. So, and I'm thrilled that she's back with me again this month or so. But it's great. It's a great honor for her. So I think that she needs to be recognized for that. Things that I've been working on: I've been meeting with Mrs. Burton and her junior high team for our now combined basketball season that will start in the fall. The first communications have gone out to parents. I'm really scared to say this, but we have not heard any negative feedback. It's been very, very positive. So that's really great to hear. I think the last time I looked, which was late yesterday, I think we had 28 some odd responses, already getting like jersey sizes, interests, just kind of coming up with a plan. Met with her team to work on our schedules, our coverage of the games, and where they will be located. So we're working on that. And as far as myself, I'm working on finishing up our 504 plans for the end of the year and getting everything set up for next year.
Any questions for Ms. Acton? Thank you. Technology, Mr. Richardson.
I don't really have a whole lot to add. Just this next week will be busy. We'll be collecting all devices back in, making sure we get all those. So that'll be a big undertaking. And then again, working with Michelle to spend all this money. I did have an issue today. Well, Comcast had an issue today. So the internet, pretty much from Oakwood to the west, is out. So it's been out since about 1:45. I have no idea when it's going to come back. I just checked, and they moved the time up to 9:55 p.m. now. So I'm crossing my fingers that everything will be back up in the morning. So we'll just have to see.
It's not only the internet, it's our cable.
Oh, it's the cable too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have cable TV, so I didn't know.
And my
Typically-
telephone.
Well, yeah, telephone, yeah. So we currently do not have
I'm all
telephone
Comcast.
outside too,
Everything's
because
going.
that's where our telephones are through also. So I'm hoping that'll be up in the morning. Otherwise, we're gonna have to go back to the draconian age of no internet.
I got a counselor trying to get grades in for seniors
Wow.
for graduation.
We'll have to go home or come out here. You can always come out here.
Yeah.
For some reason, it didn't affect us out here, so that's a good thing. You want to break some classes out here
You may
too?
be sorry you asked that.
The telltale sign, you have to go on 150 and they're still working.
Yeah, they were right out here.
4 trucks out there earlier. Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Richardson? Thanks, sir. Ms. Lund couldn't make it tonight. Mr. Siddons.
I don't have a lot. One thing I got to do is keep Mr. Lee calm before graduation. He's pretty wound up about the weather and setting up for graduation. So that's going to be a big chore the next couple of days. So, otherwise, we're gearing up for cleaning the buildings, getting things around. It's going to be scheduling is going to be a little different this year, but the custodians are ready to start getting into it. The buildings weren't in too bad a shape with the COVID hit, but we still got to do what we need to do to get them back ready for next fall, so. I don't have a whole lot. Sure, I'll be meeting with Mr. Maynard here in the near future, getting things together and knowing where we're going and what project we're gonna do, so. It's gonna be a fun summer.
Any questions for Mr. Sidney? Sure. We have no, number 9, other business. We do need to enter closed session. Do I have a motion to enter closed session at 7:15 PM?
So moved.
Ms. Bradford?
Second.
Mr. Lynn? Any discussion? Roll call.
Motion by Bradford, second by Lynn, to enter closed session at 7:15 PM. Lynn?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Hicks?
Yes.
Bradford?
Yeah.
Motion carried, roll call vote.
To re-enter open session at 7:45 PM.
So moved.
Mr. Lynn,
Second.
Ms. Bradford, any discussion? Roll call.
Motion by Lynn, seconded by Bradford to re-enter open session at 7:45 PM. Ludwig,
Yes.
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Bradford,
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote through.
Agenda item number 11, consideration and action. We have 11A, we have consideration and action to appoint Educational Leadership Solutions as a firm to lead the district and community through the strategic planning process for a one-time fee of $7,900, as well as the administrative evaluation system of SuperVal to align goals with the strategic planning process for an annual subscription fee of $3,200. We are actually using some of our board convention expenses on this.
That's correct. Been speaking about this the last few months, so there's really nothing new to add. I would recommend that you approve this at this time.
So moved.
Ms. Ludwig,
Second.
Ms. Bradford, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Motion by Ludwig, seconded by Bradford to appoint the Educational Leadership Solutions as presented. Smith,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Bradford,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote for.
We have a routine action item, consideration action to approve the ESP hours for the 2021-2022 school year. That's July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022.
Okay, this is just being in compliance with our new language that we have in our collective bargaining agreement from September of 2020. And recommend that you would approve this at this time. It has been shared with the Oakwood Education Association.
What are those hours, Mr. Mayor? Does that need to be on the record?
We had, the hours are for the summer are 6 to 2:30. Okay, and that's in the document there.
Okay.
For the summertime, which would start July 1. And then it's the normal hours that they're currently working for their school days. So you have some custodians, for example, that are working an afternoon shift. Some are working earlier from 6 to 2:30, and you've got your kitchen people that have some different hours. So I've submitted a spreadsheet in the packet here to them that basically they have all had a chance to initial to sign off on. That establishes and confirms their hours for regular school year for the summer. And any other items like holidays, it just says refer to the collective bargaining agreement.
So moved.
Ms. Ludwig? Second.
Second.
Ms. Hicks? Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Motion by Ludwig, seconded by Hicks to approve the ESP hours as presented. Smith,
Yes.
Hicks, excuse me. Bradford,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Motion for a roll call vote by.
We have another routine action item, Oakwood Junior High School and Oakwood High School. We have consideration action to approve membership with the IHSA and IESA for the 2021-22 school year.
Recommend you approve that.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Ms. Bradford?
Second.
Mr. Lynn, any further discussion? Roll call?
Motion by Bradford, seconded by Lynn to approve the IHSA and IESA membership as presented. Hicks,
Yes.
Bradford,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote 6.
Agenda item 11B, we have consideration action to approve the voluntary transfer of Ashley Woodard from K2 special education intervention position to the special education vacancy created by Kay Snyder's resignation. Ashley Woodard will be on step 1 with a master's degree.
Okay. Do you want to say anything about that, Ms.
So
Lepenis?
basically, you had hired her for a new position, but with Kyle's resignation, we need to fill that position first. And she is very much interested in moving into that because some of her kids from early childhood will now be moving into that classroom. So she's excited to take that position. And I would like to repost for the new position tomorrow, see if we get any applicants.
Sounds good.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Lynn, Ms. Bradford. Roll call, or any further discussion? Roll call.
Motion by Lynn, seconded by Bradford, to approve employment of Ashley Woodard as presented. Bradford,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Yes.
motion carried by roll call vote. Then.
Agenda item 11E, we have consideration action to employ Viviana Anderson for the position of teaching assistant for the 2021-2022 school year. She'll be starting at step 1.
So Viviana is currently a personal aide for us that showed interest in becoming a teaching assistant. She has met all the criteria to do so, and she's been excellent. So we're excited to have her be a teaching assistant in our preschool classroom next year.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Ms. Ludwig,
Second.
Ms. Bradford, roll call. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Motion by Ludwig, seconded by Bradford, to approve the employment of Viviana Anderson as presented. Lynn,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Bradford.
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote. 8.
Agenda item 11F, consideration action to employ Tristan Miller for the full-time PM custodial position and introduction training beginning upon completion of required paperwork. He'll be on step 1 of the collective bargaining agreement.
This position is open due to Larry Laughlin's retirement, and Brian Cox will be moving to the AM position. Tristan will be a great addition to our staff. He's very enthusiastic, has a lot of background in construction, and he's really looking forward to getting started. Fingerprints will be on the 25th, and as soon as we get the green light, he will start and he will train with Brian Cox.
His shift will be the 2 to 10:30 position. Is that correct, Ms. Lepenis? Mr.
1
Siddons?
to 9:30.
1 to 9:30? Is that right, Mr. Siddons?
So if we go back, are we going back to the regular schedule?
Yeah, I thought it was the 2 to 10:30,
The
so
posting said 1 to 9:30, but that was special circumstance due to COVID, so.
correct. Yeah, I think we're back to normal, the 2 to 10:30 now. Sounds good. Good clarification. Thank you.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Lynn,
Second.
Ms. Hicks, any further discussion? Roll call.
Motion by Lynn, seconded by Hicks, to approve the employment of Tristan Miller as presented. Ludwig,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Bradford,
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote. 9.
Next regular meeting will be June 16, 2021 at 5:30 PM. There will be a public budget amendment hearing at 5:15 just before our regular meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Lynn,
Second.
Ms. Bradford, roll call.
All right.
Oh, at, 7:53 PM.
Okay. I couldn't see there was a glare. Okay, motion by Lynn, seconded by Bradford, to adjourn at 7:53 PM. Smith,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Bradford.
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote 10.